Houston, our instruments are showing that we have a incoming message from deep space. Repeat, Houston, we have an incoming message from deep space. Houston, we'll begin playing message now. Houston, we're going to try and translate that up here. Hold for translation. Translation complete. We'll begin playing message now.
Hey, it's me, Melissa.
What do you do when the aliens invade? Take a shot of MK Ultra and watch Melissa Jade. Put on your tinfoil hat and tune right in. We got that crime spree, flat earth theories, government conspiracies, a complex Mandela effects, unidentified objects, a mind expanding, fake moon landing, what it all been understanding. It's me, Melissa. It's me, Melissa. Aliens is on the sun or in Area 51. Time travels, unravels, haunted castles, cops are baffled, potential experimental thoughts that make you transcendental. It's me, Melissa. It's me, Melissa. Crime sprees, flat earth theories, government conspiracies, complex Mandela effects, unidentified objects of mind expanding, fake moon landing, what it all been understanding. It's me, Melissa. It's me, Melissa.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Shebune. Hi, Foxfire. Hi, Harlot 87, TF, Misbehavin', Strange Exchange, Glowbug, Candace. Did I say Harlot? If I didn't, Harlot, Kathy, it's Mimi, J-Lord, Tony, Musicity Mom. Hi, guys. How are you? Hey, MK. Welcome. We're doing an earlier live today because I have to be somewhere tonight. But hi, Adrian. Hey, Wolfie. Just in time for your lunch break. Perfect. Hey, Karen Petty. Hi, Crime Sleuthin'. So, I've been waiting to speak to you guys about this. How many of you guys are familiar with the AirMail? How many of you guys are familiar with the AirMail article? How many of you guys are familiar with the AirMail article? Because it has been taking over. It has been taking over. If you are not familiar with the AirMail article, Howard Bloom, we've discussed one other segment of what Howard Bloom, hey, King Scarlet, we've discussed one other article Howard Bloom has published before in this series, but other than that, I've never really, hey, Carrie, I've never really, hey, Dumplings Gammy, I've never, Harlot says, yeah, I'm familiar. Bloom is full of shit. Hi, Sherry GB. Plus the family's statement about it too. Has the family put out a statement about this article? Oh, see, you guys are telling me something. I didn't know if they did actually. I'm late on the game. Ooh. Well, here, hold on. Oh, Shay. You always can rely on our Shay Bonet, can't we? Yeah, let me throw up my Shea Bonnet. Oh, okay, it's Mimi. Thank you. I'm playing catch up too. I apologize. All right. So it's been kind of going crazy. What? Why ignore your text, Shay? Wait, I just sent myself. Never mind. Never mind. The internet has been kind of going crazy. I've noticed with this AirMail. Oh my God, I did it again. With this AirMail article. Okay. And I want to go over it with you guys. Ooh, Steve said it's all lies. Wait, I see you emailed me, but I thought you might want this before tonight's live. But wait, you didn't send me what was posted. Where is it? There's no attachment or anything. People meh. I would love to see the family statement. So after we get done reading it, we could see the family statement and response. Hey, malicious intent. She's so sweet. It's like, I thought you might want this before tonight's live, and this was posted, but that's not there. Oh, no, you're fine. It's Mimi. That's totally something I would do. That's totally something I would do. You're too funny. Okay, well, we wait for that. Hey, Akasha. Either way, let's go through the AirMail article. Let's read it together. Then at the end, we'll go through the family statement. I want to see what your guys' thoughts are regarding it. If you hear these things moving forward, you'll at least know where the source is, where it's coming from. Now, I was going to ask, okay, I've been watching Jules's videos on this because you know I love my Jules. But where is Howard getting this information from? Because Howard he's been, from what I understand, and I haven't read the article. I have not read the article. I know what's within the article, but I haven't read the article. But where is Howard getting this information from exactly? I've wanted to know. Oh, thank you, Crime Sleuthin. You both said his imagination. Because you speak as if you have a lot of reliable information, yet what's your source? I don't know. Okay. Whoops. Okay. Hey, guys. So, it says The Eyes of a Killer. What is that, part 6? And it says, after a few false leads, a grieving father turned amateur sleuth discovers the prosecution's hidden ace. Emily, and you agree with Jules. Is it all false, or is this damage control? Because this could be devastating for Brian's process. Right. $5 says she will spot the first red flag in 3 minutes. Oh, I'm excited. I haven't read it. I'm excited. The eyebrows of a killer. All right, well, let's see, shall we? All right, 1 second. Okay. So, Kaylee had solved the mystery. All evening, it had been gnawing at her, the disconcerting image fixed in her mind. Actually, it had grabbed her earlier that afternoon, October 5th, 2021. A surprisingly cool Tuesday in the pleasant university town of Moscow, Idaho, a day when the sudden drop in temperature was the first unwanted reminder that a glorious Indian summer was over and the Northwest winter would soon be closing. After classes, Kaylee, who loved to shop, and her boyfriend at the time, Jack, had headed to Walmart Supercenter on Pullman, just a quick drive from the University of Idaho campus. The warehouse store was vast and ugly, situated atop acres of black asphalt parking lanes like a stolid concrete fortress. But it sure had a lot of stuff. You could pretty much find anything. Okay. Hi, Miss Maley. Listen, I'm going to try, but all right, let's just continue. Hi, Mia B. Oh, thanks, Baseball Mom. The two students had been wandering through the maze of harshly lit aisles when Kaylee first noticed the grandmotherly woman. She had pale, stringy hair and the bewildered look of someone trapped in a situation she couldn't quite understand. But more unnerving was the animal straightness of the woman's stare. She fixed Kaylee with a gaze and held it way past anything that could be considered polite, or for that matter, normal. True, it wasn't threatening, but it was decidedly odd. Only in retrospect would Kaylee decide it had been beseeching. You actually can't attest to what it was to Kaylee, because Kaylee is not here to speak for herself. Okay? And there's no way for you to know this information. I'm just putting that out there, first of all. Then, when Kaylee and Decor were at the checkout center and counter, she happened to look up absently, only to discover the woman now standing at rigid attention, with her back to a wall of shelves, had once again homed in on her with the same unremitting stare. It was creepy. What is up with her? Kaylee wondered. How do you know what Kaylee wondered? I didn't know that you were able to get into someone's mind and determine what they are thinking and wondering. It's an amazing ability, Howard Bloom. And now, hours later, she knew. She had just seen the face again, this time on a missing person flyer. Okay. The woman Kaylee was convinced was Sharon Archer, a frail 62-year-old encumbered by diabetes and brain damage, who had abruptly vanished a week earlier from the house she shared with her husband up north in Coeur d'Alene. The couple's car, a 2013 white Toyota Highlander, was missing too. No one knew what had happened, and in the absence of real information, increasingly feverish internet speculation flourished. The scenarios ran the gamut, from a mental breakdown to more fanciful schemes involving abduction or murder. But now Kaylee knew, and at 10:25 that night, just moments after all the pieces had clicked into place in her mind, Kaylee prompted Kaylee promptly telephoned the Moscow Police Department. She spoke to Sergeant Dustin Blaker, telling him she was convinced she spotted the woman, and then, for good measure, she sent an email with the missing person notice attached. We're going to go over it next, Angela. Despite the late hour, the sergeant, a barrel-chested weightlifter with just over a year on the force, conscientiously went to work. Officers were dispatched to the Walmart parking lot, and they combed its dark recesses for the telltale Toyota. At the same time, calls were made to local hotels asking if a woman matching Sharon Archer's description had checked in. Both searches were futile, and accessing the Walmart surveillance camera videos proved to be nettlesome. It had to be postponed until the next day, and then it too turned out to be another dead end. As it has happened, it wasn't Kaylee's call that solved the mystery. More than 2 anxious weeks passed before an angler perched on a dock noticed a bulky shape entombed in the lead gray depths of Fernan Lake, a popular fishing spot about a 10-minute drive from downtown Coeur d'Alene. I don't know how to pronounce that. When police lifted a white Toyota Highlander from the water, a body lay inside. The autopsy identified the corpse as Sharon Archer, and while the specific circumstances of her grim death remain conjectural, no foul play had been charged. The investigation into the case petered out, soon to be overtaken by fresh tragedies. So, let's stop there for a second. How do you know that information? Coeur d'Alene. Thank you, malicious intent. But it wouldn't be me if I didn't mispronounce it. Let's be real. So let's pause for a second. What I'm guessing, through FOIA requests, you were able to determine that Kaylee did indeed make a call, spoke with Blaker, maybe acquired her email for the missing persons, maybe even spoke with her family. I don't know. Maybe Jack, and was able to have the story relayed to you that Kaylee relayed to them that she experienced. There is a police report for that. Okay, exactly. So what you did, in my opinion, is you took facts, right? The constant, and then you created your own variables. Because there's no possible way you're able to write what somebody was thinking at the time, what somebody's thought process was at the time. You're not them. So already, and I'm not trying to be too harsh, but I don't like you are writing this as if it's someone mentioned like a Stephen King book. Like Kaylee is a character, but she's a real person. And I don't like that you are writing as if you know what she was thinking or feeling or experiencing. Like you know what her thought process may have been for the intention of good story writing, right? To make it sound good. I'd rather you keep it short, sweet, and factual than give me a bunch of fancy words with a bunch of descriptive adjectives and it be not accurate. I was gonna say it is interesting that she spoke to Blaker. It is interesting, but you could have just summed that up in one sentence, right? But I do not appreciate Howard writing this as if he knew what Kaylee was thinking, feeling, experiencing at the time. There's no possible way. Okay. So it says, no one knew what had happened, and in the absence of real information, increasingly feverish internet speculation flourished. Only now, in December 2022, a little more than a previously unimaginable year later, the Sharon Archer case and the minor role his daughter had played in the hunt suddenly reared up in Steve Gonsalves's newly agitated mind, as if summoned signposts as he searched for the means to make his way through the battering pain of his own bereavement. For Steve and his wife and their remaining 4 children have been brought low. AirMail reached out to Steve for comment, but Steve's attorney said neither he nor his client can comment due to a gag order. Well, he did, and we're going to go over it when we're done with this article. Yes, Carrie, he's a novelist, not a journalist. He doesn't stick to facts. Exactly. Welcome, Envision. Less than a month earlier, in the dreary pre-dawn darkness of November 13th, 2022, Kaye, her best friend Maddie Mogan, who might as well have been another daughter to him and his wife, and 2 other University of Idaho students, Xana and her boyfriend Ethan, were gruesomely stabbed to death in a house a stone's throw from the heart of the campus. The unknown killer? Or was it killers? He wondered. Was still at large. It was an inconsolable loss and an unfathomable crime. I'm sorry, did he just do it again? Oops, Bloom did it again. You assumed to know Steve's thoughts. How can you say or was it killers, he wondered. Steve? I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Steve struggled to make sense of his emotions. In the aftermath of his daughter's murder, his inchoate anger roiled, raw and unfettered. One day he railed with an uncomprehending anguish at the cosmic injustice of it all. You can't imagine sending your girl to college and they come back in an urn. He grieved openly to a group of reporters. You're numb. You can't absorb that amount of pain and agony. Next, he chose to target the capricious, if not lackadaisical, I cannot pronounce that, manner with which he had decided law enforcement was attempting to solve the murders. I do not feel confident, he responded with a vehement candor when asked on a news show about the police investigation. And that's why I push the envelope and say a little bit more. Yet, even as he made himself available to nearly every journalist who reached out to him, Steve couldn't help feeling he'd confide to a friend that all his heartfelt proclamations, everything he had been calling necessary truths, added up to little more than a sort of self-indulgence. His public sharing of his anguish and misgivings gave him little comfort. I hate to be that guy, he would say. Even more disheartening, after all of his years as a father of devoting himself full time, doing what he thought best for his children, he was confronting with the devastating reality that there was nothing more he could do for Kaye, nor could he identify a clear-headed strategy to lead his grieving family forward. Never had he been so unprepared, and yet never had his family needed so much. His grieving family needed him like never before, but he couldn't figure out how to lead them forward. He was at a loss. And that's when it hit him with a jolt. For no apparent reason at all, he suddenly found himself recalling the frenetic speculation surrounding Sharon Archer's disappearance and how his daughter had unhesitatingly thrown herself into the investigation. And with her actual participation, now a detective, a barrier had in effect been crossed. What had previously been a diversion had become real. It dawned on him that he too had been transformed into a character in an even more poignant and notorious true crime story, a perplexing mystery that had captured the nation's attention. For weeks, he had been struggling on. No dogma, only emotion. It was as if he'd been letting himself be tossed around by the surging waves of breaking news. But now he knew what he would do. He would do it because for a father, no sacrifice is too great. And a father's duty to his child never ends, not even with her death. He would do it because while he was a man alone, with his family's support and assistance, they became a force whose commitment and focus was greater than anything the so-called authorities could muster. He would do it because to walk any other path would be weakness or even cowardice. And he would do it because it was what his beloved Kaye would do and had tried to do. He would solve the case. Bloom. How do you know the... Stop talking as if you are able to... Okay, listen. We are all able to observe as outsiders what we perceive others to be going through based on their interviews, statements, things like that. I have even given my opinion about what Steve is experiencing based on what I personally have witnessed from Steve. But I could never imagine writing as if I know what Steve is experiencing. Stating it in a way as if it's fact, because that's how I'm reading this. I'm reading this as if it's fact, as if it's certain. I'm reading this as if it's a book. This feels like it's a character, like it's set, it's the background, it's the story, right? How do you have this information? How do you claim to know what someone is thinking and experiencing? Like, that's just insane to me. Oh, Nika, I couldn't wait to hear your perspective on this. Bonus, I get to see your face too. Thanks for going live. Oh, thank you so much, Nika, for the super chat. That's so kind of you. And yeah, no, sorry it took me so long. But, and yes, for anybody who's saying that, you know, the family is saying that they never spoke to Bloom. Yes, I'm aware. We're going to go through all of that after the article. I still want to go through the article because, you know, it's going to continue making its way through the community. You're going to hear people repeating these claims. So I think it is important to take the time to go through the article to know the source of the claims you're going to hear people make in the future, discuss it, kind of go back and forth with what we think our thoughts are and our opinions are regarding it, then go through the family statement, Howard Bloom statement, and then kind of move forward with what our opinions are from there. But at least we'll have all of the information that we went through so we could move forward and have our own opinions. That's okay, Militia. My snot rocket. Hey, ETS News. Yay. Okay. All right, let's continue. Oh, that would make sense. I was thinking about Brat crime sleuthing. So that makes sense. Okay. So going public. And as Steve's investigation rumbled forward, it was just a brief matter of time, a week or two at most, before his quest became inextricably intertwined with another amateur's own deep dive into the events of that fateful November night in Moscow. And perhaps this alliance had been preordained too. For just as fathers are often drawn to follow in their daughters' footsteps, so do daughters on occasion take to emulating their dads. Yet, as Olivia Vitali tells it, she had never paid much attention to how her father earned his living. The fact that he'd been a hard-charging crime reporter in his native Chicago, Olivia explained to me, and then had gone on to a career as both a reporter and editor in Los Angeles, had not made much of an impression on her when she was growing up in Washington State. So this is Chronicles of Olivia, guys, that he's referring to. Her parents had divorced, and his occupation in a distant city was an irrelevancy amid the bustle of her own life. Or so she had thought. But now, she was beginning to suspect that perhaps biology was indeed destiny. For back then, as a precocious 22-year-old working in real estate in Florida, Vitali had been inexplicably drawn to the flurry of media accounts recounting the brutal murder of Gabby Petito by her fiancé as the freewheeling young couple had vanned across the country. Not constrained by any formal journalistic training or experience, she posted personal, empathetic, yet carefully researched videos about the case on TikTok and YouTube. And she didn't stop posting when this mystery was put to rest and had vanished from the front pages. Crime, unfortunately, is a growth industry, and Olivia shrewdly hitched a ride on the comet tail of this zooming business. Inventive and persistent, Vitali chased one confounding case after another. And within a year or so, the Chronicles of Olivia were pulling in tens of millions of viewers. By the time she was 25, Vitali was one of the go-to sources for a generation who got their crime stories down, dirty, and dishy from the internet. And one of her avid followers had been Kaye. I'm sorry. Just quick question. Is down, dirty, and dishy a phrase today? I know I'm like really getting old, but I hadn't heard of that yet. Is down, dirty, and dishy something these days? And if so, is it good? Is it a good reference? Like, oh yeah, baby, like you are dishy. I don't know. I'm genuinely asking. Avid, she followed her TikTok. That's it. There were no interactions, comment, messages. Well, and you know what? Crime sleuthing, I actually had been thinking that. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before when I was watching Jules, because Jules made a great point on her video. Listen, yes, it was really cool. It was really cool how the Gonsalves did try to go forward with Chronicles of Olivia, because as a true crime creator, you would love to be a voice for the families, and for them to choose to partner with her and tell their story through her, that is awesome. But all I'm saying is, if you go through my subscription list, I don't just follow people that I necessarily like. I'm just saying that. Like, you'll know the difference, because if I like them, I usually will leave comments and I'll make my presence known. If I don't like them, I'm usually silent. And that's not indicative of whether or not Kaylee liked Chronicles of Olivia. I'm just saying, for myself, I'm subscribed to a lot of channels that I don't necessarily not hate, but like, I don't really feel much. I don't, I may be following it for one reason or another. And Mast. Yeah, but I've never heard of Down, Dirty, and Dishy before. That's new to me. It kind of reminds me of something that we would read from Gypsy Rose and Nick Godejohn's text message exchange, right? Okay. So Steve had discovered this connection when he and his oldest daughter, Olivia, were assiduously checking out Kaylee's phone for clues. And this is another great point that Jules made in her video, actually, because here again, we have another contradiction of whether or not the Gonsalveses did indeed have Kaylee's actual phone. So in the beginning, we had heard that they had her phone, and then later on, we heard that they had her phone records. But at this point, I'm not putting much weight in Bloom, so I'm just gonna not rely on this at all. Ever since he had decided to sweep all of the extraneous emotional debris cluttering his mind aside and instead to live by his wits, he'd been on the hunt. The two of them had gone through the list of contacts, reached out to Kaylee's friends, and helped to reconstruct the last hours of Kaylee and her best friend Maddie, information they shared with authorities. They had also discovered a persistent series of calls in the wee hours of that morning from Kaylee to her ex-boyfriend, Jack Decor, calls that had gone unanswered. Star-crossed young romance? Or could it be something more ominous? Steve quickly passed that intelligence onto the cops. Oh, thanks, Baseball Mom, for being a member for 10 months. It's so kind of you. And there is Kaylee and Jack. Oh, do you? It's me. I have very exaggerated facial expressions. So it says, yet when the Moscow PD summarily hooked Jack up to a lie detector and administered a DNA swab to compare with evidence found at the crime scene, he passed both examinations with flying colors, according to one of Steve's friends. Oh, okay. So you are in communication with one of Steve's friends. Good to know. Pointer Lover, happy 1 year, Pointer Lover. I love it. Happy 1 year. Steve, however, was still not completely assuaged. Nothing about the murders made any sense, and so everything seemed possible. And so when a grieving Jack came to the Gonsalveses' home, not long after the events, to pay his respects, Steve gravely demanded that the young man submit to the indignity of a physical inspection. Jack promptly rolled up his sleeves, lifted his shirt, exposed his neck, and displayed his hands, both palms up and down, with Steve meticulously searched in vain for a telltale scratch or bruise. But Steve was not done. Caught up in his newfound forensic professionalism, he took a series of photographs documenting Jack's unblemished state. It was exculpatory evidence that would come in handy, he'd felt, as the authorities proceeded to compile their list of suspects. And with that bit of awkward business out of the way, the two grieving men finally embraced. How do you know, though, Bloom? Like, again, I know these are details we've heard before, but there are also the little details we didn't hear before. And it seems like you're adding those in yourself. Like the part where exculpatory evidence. Really? Did you add that in? I feel like you added the I don't think that Steve ever said the exculpatory evidence part, unless I'm mistaken, and please correct me if I am. And the part where then they all just embraced. Maybe they did. I mean, I recall them speaking about this and how it went down, but I don't recall that being stated. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. Hey, Richie. I just don't know how Steve Bloom is speaking to things as fact, almost as in first person. Yeah. Right, Pickle. And we're going to get to that because that's some big accusations. So it says Vitali was one of the go-to sources for a generation who got their crime stories down, dirty, and dishy from the internet. And one of her avid followers had been Kaye. Again, what is that? Down, dirty, and dishy? I've never heard of that before. I'm gonna make a new little avatar. Down, dirty, and dishy. Like, I just imagine like a cartoon emoji with like a sink and like cartoon dishes with suds and like a sponge, like a really dramatic yellow sponge with the holes in it and suds just pouring from it, like down, dirty, and dishy. That's what I imagine when you say that. But to be honest, and again, I respect Chronicles of Olivia as a creator, but I never went to her to get my information, but that's just me. So not everyone, not a whole generation, unless it ain't you know what? I'm not part of the dishy generation, so that might be it. Yeah, that's a triple D. That's a D cubed. Okay. So it says, Nika. So it says, in the days that follow, Steve tracked down Hunter Johnson, Chapin's frat brother and best friend. Just before noon on November 13th, Johnson had been summoned by the two distraught survivors to the King Road house, where he had discovered Ethan's body. Days later, he gave his eyewitness account to Steve as a soldier might. Straightforward, factual, and without either embellishment or emotion. It was only when he finished that the two men, both overwhelmed, at last convulsed into tears. Listen. What I think is happening here, and this is just me, I think because so far from the article, it's information, it's pieces of information that we have heard from numerous places. And it seems like he's taken all of that information, compiled it together, and then stringed it together with details he has added. Oh my gosh. Amber. Oh, you are too funny. Does that make sense? So, like, if I took all of the information that I've learned or heard about this case, and then I went to go put it together and to create a story with it, I would just fill in the gaps with details. And I could create those details in my head. That's what this seems like. You took bits and pieces that we've heard and you've strung it together with your own details. Not firsthand knowledge, not eyewitness accounts, but your own embellishment and story. Yeah, we're going to go through it next, Aaron, and welcome. Okay, so it says, Steve also made a point of knocking on the doors of the houses adjacent to the murder scene and interrogating the neighbors. We'll pull up Steve's tweets, guys, after this. We're going to go through the family statements and everything Steve has said since. So Steve also made a point of knocking on the doors of the houses adjacent to the murder scene and interrogating the neighbors. He was going where he felt he had to go, but his mission had not produced the desired result. Over a month had passed, and there had been no arrests, only vague statements about a missing Hyundai Elantra that had been spotted near the King Road house the night of the murders. The authorities had yet to name a suspect. It was infuriating. The prospect of his daughter's murder became one more cold case was torture. But as much as he needed to see a perp being let off in handcuffs, he was also chasing after something else. He needed to know why. Why these kids? Why this house? Why had this nightmare enveloped his family's life? For his own peace of mind, he required a motive. And without this knowledge, nothing in his life from November 13th onward would ever make sense. It was, he'd explain, those currents of frustration and perplexity that pushed him nearly 6 weeks after the murders to double down on his detective's mission. He decided he was done with working quietly on the sidelines. He made up his mind to go public, to proclaim his new, ambitious vocation, and to ask for help. He would make a public appeal. Because Steve was certain that even if the police had failed to locate them, there had to be people out there who knew more than they were sharing. People, particularly students with some dodgy antics to hide, might be willing to whisper secrets to a mourning father than to a judgmental police officer. And with this plan set in his mind and an affirming nod to Kaylee's memory, Steve reached out to Olivia Vitali. knowledgeable allies. Olivia thought it was a hoax, one more internet fabrication. She did not believe that Kaylee's father had actually contacted her, and so she didn't respond. But it kept nagging at her. Was it possible that the email had been sent by Steve Gonsalves? And if so, could she be on the verge of a scoop? And so, with a diligence that belied her 25 years, she tracked down Olivia, who confirmed that was in fact her father's email address. Excitedly, Olivia wrote back, "Oh, Eddie, thanks for being a member for 7 months." It was a pragmatically brief courtship. Both would profit from the Gonsalves' appearance on Chronicles of Olivia. And more serendipity, Olivia was already in Moscow. It had just been 90 minutes straight up I-95 north to the Gonsalves' home. The meeting was quickly arranged. Vitali was filled with trepidation as she and her producer, Bullhorn Betty, that was her nom de internet, set up inside the family's yellowish living room for the interview with Steve, Olivia, and Chrissy, Kaylee's mother. Without any network imprimatur, Vitali had landed the sort of scoop that a generation earlier would have gone to Barbara Walters for. But the Idaho murders was a news story owned by a new breed of journalists, an event sustained by the nonstop, fulsome attention it received on the internet. The Gonsalves sit shoulder to shoulder. Hey, Leah. Hey, Yankee Kyle. The Gonsalves sit shoulder to shoulder on the couch in their living room. Vitali, who sits off camera, is a polite, disembodied voice asking the questions. But there's a hesitancy to her probing. It is as if she's acknowledging that she's intruding, that she doesn't belong in this house of grief. And her reaction is understandable. Steve's face is grave, solemn, and expressionless, as blank and flat as an empty piece of paper. Watching the tape of the interview, one can feel the harsh tension in the room. Will the Gonsalves reconsider and order Vitali and her producer to turn off the camera? It seems very possible, even likely. And then something remarkable happens. The Gonsalves seem to surrender, perhaps accepting the absurdity of the situation, of their sitting in their living room talking to a stranger young enough to be one of their children about their innermost feelings with a video camera aimed at them like a weapon. A restraining wall comes tumbling down, and like all mourners, they begin to talk about their past. The heartfelt memories of Kaylee pour out. Yet Steve has not forgotten his agenda, and he is soon back in the present. He wants to let the complacent authorities know what they can expect from him. He wants them to understand that if they can't get the job done, then he will. Staring into the camera, he proclaims with an earnest passion, "We are not going to bed and wait for other people to solve a family problem. This is a family problem." And he continues to drive home to the point that he's on the case. We are not going to sit here and let someone else do a job that we can add value to. He's determined, as he puts it, to make an impact, to listen to what people are saying, to be a part of solving it. He needs to feel. He volunteers with an affecting candor that I gave it my all. I did everything that I could. Yet he also acknowledges his limitations. He openly appeals for help in his hunt to find the killers. This takes a whole community. It takes all of us to solve. This is on us, Steve says, staring into the camera that has now become his ally, focusing directly on his audience. Are we going to let these people exist? And then it's as if the entire hour-long interview has built to his uttering a single terse yet unflinching pronouncement. And with his face as somber as a graveside mourner's, he states, I'm telling you right now, we're coming for you. It's as much a warning to the killer as it is an ineluctable vow to himself. However, 2 days after the interview was posted online, a 28-year-old graduate student in criminal justice at Washington State University was arrested as a SWAT team of state troopers stormed into his parents' home across the country in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. Brian Kohberger was swiftly extradited back to Idaho and charged with the murders of the 4 students. Steve's hunt was over before it had truly begun. He could at last hope to find a measure of peace. Or could he? The doleful 1-year anniversary of the murders is looming, and the parents of the victims, if their public utterances accurately reflect the spiritual accommodations they've forged, have managed to find ways of existing with their memories. For Jeffrey Kernodle, Xana's father, the process had involved a sort of benign surrender. This happened, What do you do? He said on a CBS show before answering his own question. You can't do a damn thing. Stacy and Jim Chapin, Ethan's mother and father, have meanwhile sought solace by setting up a foundation, Ethan's Smile, that will award scholarships to honor their son's memory. The charity is funded largely by the sale of a bright designer mix of tulip bulbs, sweatshirts decorated with flowers, and fresh-cut tulip bouquets. The Chapins live in Washington State's Skagit Valley, the flowering heart of the nation's tulip industry. But Steve Gonsalves has found neither resignation nor acceptance. The arrest of a suspect, in fact, has brought not a sense of finality, but only brooding resentments and further nagging questions. For one thing, he remains determined to make sure the authorities have arrested the right man. And while he has grown increasingly convinced that Kohberger was involved in the crime, Steve remains open to the possibility that others might also have been involved. According to texts provided to AirMail. It seems to him quite possible that there were more perpetrators in the house on King Road on the night his daughter and her friends were killed. And if there were, they must still be at large. Mr. Bloom, how do you know what Mr. Gonsalves thinks? How are you speaking as if you are privy to this type of knowledge? And honestly, shame on you if this family's private text messages were shared with you and then you release information based on those texts. You're a dirty dish. And not in the good way. And guess what? This family, either of the families, is allowed to privately change their damn thoughts on a daily basis if that's the case. I am sure there's 1,000,001 different scenarios going through their head every damn day. And so if they are talking amongst family members or friends privately, they should be allowed to express their thoughts and opinions without it going public. They should be able to question whether or not more than one person is involved. I think that's very natural to question. That's a very natural thing to question. Look at this damn case. Look at it. You'd have to be crazy not to ever have one moment where you did question whether Kohberger was the right one. It's only healthy to explore all possibilities. But for you to even obtain private communications without their knowledge or approval, and then hold them to whatever the messages may be for that particular period of time, as if that's necessarily how they feel today, is not fair. The family is allowed to feel however the family feels, because there is no right or wrong way to grieve. This is a horrific situation with horrific circumstances, and I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, what they are going through. Leave them be. But for you to write this article up, and you're speaking, you're writing this as if you're in first person, as if you are Steve, as if you are privy to his thoughts. Nobody should be speaking on the emotions and feelings on the loss of his child, of his daughter, other than Steve himself. Okay. I'll stop my rant for now. He is furious that Kohberger's pause. I'm not done with my rant. You don't know what he is. Oh, sorry, my voice is getting louder. You don't know what he is. You can't say what Steve is. You are not Steve. You cannot say what emotion he is. And it is really wrong. If you want to publish an article, what your opinion is based on what you've observed, that's fine. I've shared my opinion is on what I believe Steve is going through. Those are my opinions. But you can't be up in here publishing what Steve is going through as fact, as if you are privy to that knowledge, as if you have some special ability to be in his mind and privy to his thoughts. I think that's invasive, and this is only hurting the family. Hey, Nays. Drive safe, MK. All right, now I'll continue. So it says, he is furious that Kohberger's trial, which had been scheduled to start on October 2nd, has been postponed indefinitely. He fears, he's complained, that the trial won't occur for many months or even years. And he's particularly incensed by the no-nonsense gag order that severely limits what the law enforcement authorities, the lawyers, and the families of the victims can publicly say about the case. Thank you for being a member for 22 months, Wolvie. It is not just about that he deems this a violation of his fundamental constitutional rights. Thank you for being a member for 7 months, Shea Bonet. Rather, the paucity of specific intelligence has created a vacuum that's being filled by rumors, half-truths, and crockpot lies. And once these malignant seeds are planted, they grow tall and wild on the internet. Thanks, Nace. Yeah. You mean like your seeds that you're planting within this article, Mr. Bloom? You mean the little seeds that you have planted that are now going to grow tall and wild on the internet? Projection. Thanks again, Nace. Ashe Bunai. I don't have a sound effect for Shay yet, but we'll get there. Richie. Well, thank you for renewing. Y'all are the best. It is. I agree. Ha! Oh, God. No, he did not. Steve needs answers, not rumors. Yes, Mr. Bloom, he does. That's right. He does. Isn't it amazing? Oh God. And this goes so far beyond Mr. Bloom, but people in general, isn't it people that scream this type of stuff the loudest? They're always the ones who are doing it the most. You're right, Mr. Bloom. Steve needs answers. He doesn't need rumors. So maybe apply that to yourself. Your keys are playing hard to get, Nace. Oh, no. So it says Steve needs answers, not rumors. And so despite the arrest of a suspect, he has not abandoned his quest. And it's not simply vanity. The belief that one middle-aged guy with only a background in IT can get to the bottom of things. It's fear that propels him. The fear that if he waits passively for the cops finally to share what little they have managed to uncover, it might be too late. The remaining unidentified perpetrators will have gone to ground, and justice will not be secured. Nor will he ever get the terrible satisfaction of knowing the whole story. He will never achieve this state of grace that comes, he wants to believe, with understanding a motive. He will never know the answer to the question at the beating heart of the case. Why? And so for the past year, he has plowed on. It has not been easy going or always fruitful. For one cruel example, early on, an enticing tip came his way, according to the text, from a source he described as a jailhouse snitch. It was a tale that offered to tie up all the loose ends of the case, and spurred on by that promise, both Steve and the private detective he had hired fanned out with their inquiries into several states, energized by the intoxicating possibility that he was on the verge of accomplishing what the professionals had failed to do. But in the bitter end, it was nothing more than an elaborate con, a malicious scheme to squeeze some money out of the grieving family's misery. The experience was demoralizing. Yet Steve persevered, only to be conned again. A grainy light bulb cam video of the King Road neighborhood came his way that proved Koberger wasn't the lone killer. It was only after he went to some expense and hired a professional videographer to examine the recording that he conceded it was a fake. Then there was his decision to leak a time-stamped video of another vehicle tearing away from a street adjacent to the murder house just before dawn on the morning of the murders to one of the true crime internet sites. His logic was that it was very possibly game-changing evidence. It needed official scrutiny. But this video, too, was also deemed fake. And in the end, his tangential role in its dissemination became a bit of an embarrassment. I'm sorry, pause real quick. Do you recall a video of a vehicle tearing away on the street adjacent to the murder just before dawn? I don't even recall that footage. And trust me, we would know if it was out there. If there was footage of a freaking car just before dawn hightailing it, ski out of here around the time of the murders on the street adjacent to the King Road house, yeah. No, the Linda Lane video doesn't show that, though. Oh. No, but the Linda Lane footage, that's not another vehicle. And that's not the street adjacent to the murder house. They were, skeet! Yeah, 421 is a ways before dawn. Well, even the sunroof wasn't speeding away, and that was earlier on in the night. Well, Frankie, the video showing the dumpster, that wasn't right before dawn. That was 3 something in the morning. Oh, Shay Bonet, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. And congratulations to all the recipients. Yay! Thank you, thank you. It's very much appreciated. Thank you so much. I don't know. Hey, Danielle. So it says, signed, Steve came to 2 unwavering conclusions. I think you're in communication with Brett Norton. That makes a lot of sense. 1, the internet theories suggesting that a drug ring had been involved in the killing were ludicrous. No pro is going to rough up someone not knowing who all is in the house, he texted a friend. This is wrong. Stop. Why are you getting his text between a friend? This is really wrong. I'm sorry, but do you guys not realize how very inappropriate that is? That you would acquire Steve's personal text message exchange between someone and then release them. This is a grieving family. You want to sit here and talk about how wrong it is to do, like, this is wrong. Honestly, his private thoughts are not meant for public consumption. Nobody's are, but this is his most vulnerable time. They're not made for public consumption. Oh, nice. Thank you, Nace, so much for gifting 5 memberships too. Congratulations to all those recipients. Thank you, thank you. Well, 87, you gotta opt in for the membership in order to get a membership, silly. It is wrong, Candace, yeah. There were, he pointed out, usually only 3 girls in the King Road house. His daughter, who had completed all her coursework and would graduate in January, had just come down to Moscow for the weekend on a whim to show Maddie her new Range Rover. Explain to me how a hitman missed Ethan and Kaylee's new car. A professional would have been daunted by the presence of 2 additional people in the house that night. Oh, Jeff, thanks for being a member. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Jeff. Yay, Jeff. And as far for the rumors of a drug deal gone bad being the underlying motive, Steve had been told by the authorities that the toxicity reports on all 4 of the victims established that they had no drugs in their system. Now that's a big ass claim. Oh, thanks, Pickle Me Amo, for being a member for 2 months. Hi, Dippity Doo. That's a big ass claim. Sorry, I got like real loud. That's a big ass claim. You know, we have all been sitting on our fingertips waiting for those toxicology reports. We've been waiting patiently. Hi, KPM. You saying that Steve said he was told by authorities that all 4 victims had no drugs in their system is a pretty big claim. I know, and he referred to it as toxicity reports. It's toxicology reports. And I was going to ask, has he been spelling Gonsalves wrong this entire article? Pretty sure he's been spelling Gonsalves wrong this entire article. Besides, if they wanted to score some pot, there was no need to get involved with a street dealer. The kids, he pointed out, could go down a street and in 8 miles there was a store where they could have easily made a buy, despite the fact that marijuana remained illegal in Idaho. Chrissy, his wife, went with them once to check it out. He texted the friend. That's so wrong. Stop putting out the text. That's making me really mad. That's none of your... Whatever these parents texted with a friend about this murder, okay? Fudge that friend for rolling. But I don't care that you got your hands on it. You may have consumed it privately to yourself, but do not put those text messages out publicly. They were not made for public consumption. Two, there are some crazy ass people who are really crazy, who were trying to elbow their way into the case with deliberate misinformation. But not all of Steve's investigative efforts have been in vain. He had been assembled a retinue of blue chip sources that he revealed to several friends included an FBI agent in the St. Louis office who had shared his personal email so that his bosses in the bureau wouldn't learn that he was communicating with Steve. A handful of additional sympathetic law enforcement officers, and most helpful of all, a conduit to 2 of the grand jurors who had been on the panel that had voted to indict Brian Kohberger. Oh, no, you didn't. That is a big-ass allegation. I am hungry. Sorry, I just had to say that because my stomach growled. So in case you heard it, it wasn't just some awkward noise. It was a rumble in the tumble, all right? No, you did not just say that. I didn't poot. I didn't want you guys to think I pooted. It was just my tummy, right? It's louder than your fan. Oh my gosh. No, but this is wrong. This is really, really wrong. You can start so much shit from this. You can start so much shit from this. See, your article claims to care about this family. Your article claims to care about what they're going through. Yet at the same time, it feels like you're constantly dropping things that are hurting them. Right, Harlot? People, meh. Right, Nays. Like, well, Steve Bloom isn't. Whoever gave the text messages, though, it is Shay. Because defense is looking for anything right now. So if this was indeed true, if this is indeed true, go to the proper authorities and hand it in. Go to the proper people and report it. If it is legitimately true and you have evidence of it and you got to do what you got to do, okay. This wasn't necessary. Because based on the other things you said in this article, I can't rely on it. And the word conduit, yup, nice catch. The word conduit, that gives him 2 degrees of separation and therefore protection and plausible deniability. He's a coward Howard. I like that. Coward Howard. That was a good one. Milk was a bad choice. Ever see Anchorman? Yes, drive safe, please, MK. To say that a conduit to 2 of the grand jurors who had been on the panel that had voted to indict Bryan Kohberger. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And in the process, he had compiled some startling revelations, hard-won information that he triumphantly disclosed to his newfound internet associates. Kohberger had purchased a dark blue Dickies long-sleeved work uniform at the Walmart in Pullman, Washington, not long before the murders. Steve had learned. Hey! That Dickies receipt, right? I swear, Bloom. I swear. Don't you be messing with us. Don't you be... Don't be a dirty dish. Don't be a dirty dish. Brat did crime sleuthing? Oh my God, that makes total sense then. See, Steve had learned. So who rolled on Steve and gave all this information? So if Brat put out a video a couple of weeks ago saying that she signed a deal with Howard Bloom, then yeah, majority of this information is coming from Brat Norton. And things that Steve may have told Brat in confidence, she now probably handed over to Howard. Which, again, I don't care what Steve may have told someone he considered a friend privately throughout this process. I can imagine this entire process is horrible. I can imagine your mind jumping around and going back and forth daily. So privately, you should have the grace of kind of like not, you're all over the place. They weren't doing anything publicly. You know what I mean? But then to take those private communication and hold them to them when there was no expectations of those ever being released. Well, no, there's probably little nuggets of accuracy in this. It's Mimi. And that's what I'm saying. It's interesting with the Dickies long sleeve uniform at Walmart. There's a possibility that could be true. It depends on the source of the information. Unfortunately, we don't have it. So it says Kohberger had purchased a dark blue Dickies long-sleeved work uniform at the Walmart in Pullman, Washington, not long before the murder, Steve had learned. The authorities had a copy of the $49.99 receipt, and they also now had a theory to explain how Kohberger had managed to escape from the crime scene without a scratch and without leaving an incriminating drop of blood in his getaway car or his apartment. He had worn the work uniform during the murders and then had disrobed before he got behind the wheel of his Hyundai Elantra for his circuitous drive back to his apartment. Perhaps the authorities hypothesized he had stuffed the work suit into a plastic garbage bag and then shoved it into his trunk. Only there was no sign of the Dickies outfit. The police had looked high and low, but they couldn't find it, just as they couldn't locate the murder weapon. They had a receipt for a K-bar knife he had purchased online months before the killings, but this too had seemingly vanished. And as long as these two crucial pieces of evidence remained unavailable, Steve feared the building case against Kohberger would remain more open than shut. Even more troubling, if true, was what Steve had learned from people who had spoken to members of the grand jury who had been presented with the prosecution's case. It centered on the alleged behavior of the two roommates who had miraculously survived the night unscathed. How, he wondered, could they have slept, blissfully unaware, through the savage pre-dawn stabbing murders of 4 people in a narrow house with paper-thin walls? Later, a police affidavit revealed that one of the survivors, Dylan Mortensen, had in fact heard noises and had left her room only to spot a masked, darkly clad intruder making his way through the residence before she retreated to her room, and she did not summon help for another 8 hours for reasons that have never been revealed. Yet Steve had been told that the two survivors allegedly had not only been awake while the killings had taken place, but that they had heard everything. More astonishingly, his grand jury sources alleged that the two girls had been texting one another as the murder methodically went from one room to the next. Oh, that gave me chills because I always went regarding the PCA. It stated they were able to determine the time that the murders occurred based on Dylan and Bethany's phone records. The possibility that two people had a sense of the horror while it occurred and had not acted, calling neither friends nor 911, left Steve floored. And no less confounding, they had, if his sources were as knowledgeable as he believed, then let hour after hour tick away before they finally decided to summon friends. It added an entirely new band of mystery to a crime that was already bound by unanswered questions. And so Steve intensified his effort to get answers. And in that dodged process, and in that dogged, no, yeah, and in that dogged process, he came to believe that the government must have a protected source, an informant who could provide testimony that would have tightened the screws that held together the case for Koberger. Steve was determined to talk to them. He did not want to wait for the trial to get the knowledge he needed. For his peace of mind, he needed relief now. And after some digging, he grew convinced he had the informant in his sights. He was preparing to reach out to this individual, to get right in his face and confront him. He would explain that he was empowered by a father's natural right to understand fully the last moments of his daughter's life. In fact, it was his duty. It was an argument he felt that no one could reject. And at last, he would know the whole story of what had really happened to Kaye and why. But before he could make a move, before he could get in a room and have a heart-to-heart talk with this witness, he was unexpectedly stopped in his tracks by the FBI. The Bureau had sent an official letter to Steve's attorney in Moscow, Shannon Gray, warning that if there were any attempt to contact the individual Steve had been pursuing, there would be legal consequences. The witness had originally reached out to the authorities through a tip line that promised to protect the identities of anyone volunteering information, and the Bureau was duty-bound to honor that commitment. And the letter went on to make clear, with an intimidating force, the fact that Steve was the father of one of the victims gave him no dispensation from the legal consequences that accompany tampering with a government witness. That's some big allegations. Stymied, Steve skulked away. The promise of real understanding was out there, yet still tantalizingly beyond his grasp. And with this setback, he fell into a period of stasis. Racked by frustration and despair, all he could do was send a disheartened text to one of his fellow internet detectives. There is so much more to this story than is in the media. Memories live in the past. Dreams, however, are part of an idealized vision of what the world might become. In dreams, as the poet noted, begin responsibilities. They hold the future. And so, thwarted in his sleuthing, still staring with bitterness at hard mysteries he cannot crack, Steve has expanded his focus. If he cannot conduct the investigation provoked by his memories of his daughter, he will at least ensure that at some point, distant appointed time, there will be a measure of justice. Therefore, on the Gonsalves family Facebook page, he, his wife, and his daughter Olivia, along with other relatives, appear in hoodies displaying a steely message. #Justice for Kaye, House Bill 186, shots fired. The Idaho State Legislature Bill 186, passed last spring, affirmed that if the chemicals required for an intravenous execution were unavailable, a death sentence could be fulfilled by a firing squad. It is an unforgiving promise Steve is making. Yet can I, a father too, cavalierly criticize the wild dimensions his bereavement encompasses? Who am I to challenge the intensity of his grief? How can I dare to point out the terrible irony in avenging murder with murder? In the end, All I can do is acknowledge what a strange, frightening tale was set in motion on that night in Moscow last November, and that Steve, too, has become another victim, and that his future is now hate. That's a horrible way to end it. That's a horrible way to end it. Who are you to determine what Steve's future is? And who are you to deem that Steve's future is now hate? How do you know that in the near future that Steve can't wake up and have a forgiving, that his life might lead in a direction where he wants to forgive? He may decide to forgive. That's a horrible way to end that. Of course he's fucking angry. Of course he has a lot of questions. Of course his emotions are all over the place. But you can't determine what his future is. And I wouldn't describe it as hate. Hate doesn't properly characterize the emotion, in my opinion, of what those parents are experiencing. It's a horrible article. Shame on you for not only putting out those allegations without any sources, those claims without any sources, but also to acquire their private text message communications with a friend or a prior friend and then releasing it to speak as if you have knowledge of their feelings or thoughts. Shame on you. But to end it out that Steve's future is now hate, that really makes me mad. Steve's future is not determined by the past, and any day that Steve wakes up, he can change the course of his future. The same way we all can. And that could be for the better, or that could be for the worse. That makes me so mad. So let's take a look at the family's response. So this article says, and thank you, Crime Sleuth, investigative reporter accused of spreading falsehoods in University of Idaho murder series. The father of Kaye Gonsalves accused an investigative journalist of spreading falsehood in a series of TV appearances. In a digital publication series, The Eyes of a Killer, Howard Blum reports on the Moscow murders. He claims that Steve was conducting his own investigation into the murders in conjunction with the official investigation conducted by law enforcement. Shannon Gray, the attorney for the Gonsalves family, said. He went on to say that Blum accuses Gonsalves of taking liberties with the case, potentially jeopardizing Brian Kohberger's case. In a statement from the Gonsalves family lawyer, Steve Gonsalves denounced much of what Blum stated in his publications, saying Blum is profiting from his dead daughter and his family's grief. And I quote, "I just want to make it very clear to the public that we have not spoken to Mr. Blum about the death of our daughter. This is nothing more than grandstanding and a very, very poor attempt at getting attention. This piece is obviously fictional, but written in poor taste. The Gonsalves family would ask that everyone please respect the victims of this tragedy and continue to support the trustworthy journalism," Gonsalves said in a statement to Nonstop Local. Blum has contacted the Gonsalves family for an interview, which they say they have declined multiple times. The next hearing for quadruple murder suspect Bryan Kohberger is set for October 26, where the court will discuss Kohberger's motion to dismiss his murder indictment based on a biased grand jury. Okay. Well, Diana, they're bound by the gag order, number one. But number two, what can Bethany or Dylan really say at this point with where it's at? If Dylan or Bethany say anything, again, one, there's a gag order in place, but two, they would just come under a lot of scrutiny. It wouldn't benefit them in any way. They would just be ripped to shreds. That's the truth. And so they're absolutely being advised by their lawyers not to. Well, again, because there is a gag order, so that it's not even like their lawyers can really discuss the details or anything. So now let's take a look at Howard Blum's tweeter. Yeah, what an asshole. So you could see he posted the link to the article, and it says, "The more I dig, the more the plot thickens." Then 8 hours ago, a brief response to this statement by the Gonsalves family attorney. 1, I have no wish to get into a public argument with Mr. Gonsalves. He and his family have already suffered too much pain. 2, we both agree on, continue in subsequent tweet. We both agree on that I never interviewed him, as the article clearly states. 3, my portrait of a grieving father was based on a trove of texts he wrote that were made available to AirMail, his public statements, and interviews with people close to him. Shame on you, Howard Blum. You never should have used private text messages. I'll stand by that. I am sure if you got your hand on private text messages that were exchanged between Steve Gonsalves and someone he considered a friend at the time, I'm sure it did reveal a lot of information. You were never meant to be privy to them, let alone release them publicly. That is where you went wrong. If you removed all of the information that came from those private text messages and just based your article off what you observed from the public statements and the interviews, that wouldn't have been an issue. The issue really came from all of the information obtained from the private text messages. Those were never meant for public consumption. That was what a grieving father was discussing between somebody he clearly was confiding in, and not meant for you, not meant for us. The fact that you took that information and weaponized it and used it, knowing that it could interfere in this case and it could affect this case and the outcome of this case, says everything we need to know about you. Well, yeah, Viola, that's why I'm saying I believe he did obtain text messages. And that's what I'm saying. Reading through the information, I'm sure a little bit of it is accurate. I'm sure it is. That's why I'm interested in the Dickies stuff and the buying of the knife. If there really is confirmation that he purchased a K-bar and that Dickies receipt does depict coveralls. Okay, Shay. Love you. Drive safe. But the truth is, Howard never should have published it. Of course I want to know. But he never should have published it. That was private text messages. That was very wrong. I agree with that, Amy. Amy says, what really pisses me off is the judge refuses to see that the more he tries to stop the circus, the bigger the circus gets. And, yeah. Because I feel like the judge is trying to go about controlling it. Meanwhile, you can't control the part you're trying to control. MK, clicksturbation. Oh my gosh. No, not regarding this case, and not regarding this case. It's not. I don't think this guy has any morals. He made a 22-year-old girl's issue with drugs that had nothing to do with the case a major feature in one of his stupid Dirty Dish articles. He's gross in my opinion. Yeah. Me too, J-Lord. Like, this was, again, don't sit here in your article and claim you care about this grieving family and how horrible it is for him as a dad and how people are just trying to make money off the case while simultaneously releasing his private text messages without his permission, without his knowledge. He had no expectation that that would ever go public. It really is ATS News. ATS News says, I feel like it's borderline trial by media at this point. Gag order from day one might have been okay, but it was too late. Left the rest to the clickbaity imagination of drama queens. Well, I think that the judge has to really look at this individual case, where it's at, the status that the role that, like how far, how do I put this? I think he needs to look at how massive this case is on social media and in the public's eyes, and how much of a demand there is for information regarding it, and how much speculation, misinformation, rumors, conspiracies, etc. there is. Due to all those factors, for this specific case, I think it would only hurt. And I'm not saying that. I would be honest and say keep a gag order and keep it behind closed doors if I truly believe that that would be what's best. Even if I didn't want that, I would admit that. But regarding this case, I think it would only make things worse. I think that I don't think people are ever going to be satisfied. Like, not everybody. There's always going to be rumors. There's always going to be speculation. There's going to be a portion of people, even if you have cameras in the courtroom and you have full transparency, there's going to be a portion of people who are always going to believe the conspiracy and not be satisfied. But it'll be a lot less if you allow transparency and allow communication and allow answers versus if you don't. It'll be so much worse if we don't have a direct source of the information to refer to. I hope they sue you for defamation and win. Best way to avoid showing the source, be the source. Tisk, tisk, Howard. Words spoken like a true grifter with no credible sources and a desperate need to create interest in your fabricated story you have no official information on. Why don't you go write about cases that have already been adjudicated instead of trying to taint an open one? So you thought it was cool to further drag the roommates? Law enforcement established the timeline through their phone activity. Your article is reckless and irresponsible. I hope the roommates get rich off suing you. I don't trust Steve either. Extremely weak reply. I guess it ain't content worthy writing a book on. Wait, what? Is what you stated in your article true or not? Stop with all your cryptic responses. 1, 2, or both of you are all making stuff up. Either way, making coin from homicides before a trial is just, Brian Kohberger should not be a victim. Number 5. It's probably because you're so scummy about it, Howard. In other words, you have no credible or authenticated sources. You just take rumors you've been sent by God knows whom and make an entire story out of fake news. Got it. I read both the Gonsalves' statements and your article. I was appalled by your assessment that he skulked away. I'm sure you don't wish to get into a public argument with Mr. Gonsalves. You already lost it. Crime Sleuthing! Try again, Howard Bloom. No apology, no retraction, no remorse for already hurting Steve Gonsalves and his family. You've slandered and hurt all the victims and survivors' families as well. You lied on them all. You're garbage, sir. No, you need to say more than this. You also need to confirm if you yourself actually did talk to anyone on that GJ. Why would you do this BS to these families? Shame on you for putting inaccurate information out there. You only want fame, and the families only want justice, and you are really getting in the way. Enough. I read that one already. I'm a grandmother of one of the victims, as well as a member of a sister church of the one that Mr. Bloom defames in this interview. I find this man totally unfit to be entrusted with this story. His demeanor is insulting and self-serving, lacking the gravitas that this horrific crime and the family's traumatic long-term pain deserves. He should know better than to indulge in his prejudices, repeat hearsay, and muddy the events with his groundless, ignorant, and pointless speculations. My beautiful granddaughter's murder is not fodder to feed this. Not sure why you are trying to profit off this family. It's very distasteful. You don't know what you're talking about with any of this. The article you wrote is BS. Trove of texts made available to AirMail, i.e., fake screenshots fed to you as admitted by a murder groupie in leaked texts floating around online. What a way to destroy your credibility in a 6-part series built on rumors and lies. This says, oh my God, Steve G is denying talking to Bloom, but that's a distraction. Bloom never said he spoke to him. He kept referring to messages he sent to others. I'm going to spread as many rumors about Steve G as I can. Will you help me? This person says, no. Why would I help you spread rumors about a victim's family? And it says, we made a bunch of fake screenshots pretending they were from Steve and sent them to that genius Bloom who helped spread ... And it says, Macy Mayon sent a message. Macy Mayon sent a message. We need to shut him down. We made a bunch of fake screenshots pretending they were from Steve and sent them to that genius Bloom who helped spread our agenda. They said, that is so wrong. Why are you doing this? But to be fair, this screenshot could be fake too. Hi, Ava. Oh, it's a lot. I don't know, guys. So that's the AirMail. Oh my God. It's the third freaking time I've done it. That's the AirMail article. I think it's clear that he's taken information that has come out from multiple different places and he's kind of collected it all together and then stringed it together with his own narrative and details that he's made up. But I wouldn't be surprised if someone that Steve was communicating to in the past that he had trusted may have handed over their private communications. And within those private communications, Steve may have vocalized certain things, including talk about the sheath or the Dickie coveralls or FBI informant or, grand jury things. I wouldn't be surprised if that were true. So the one thing I'm going to take away from the article is I'm going to keep those little nuggets a little note in my mind about the Dickie coveralls, and I'm going to look it up and kind of like look at what they look like and stuff like that. And I'm just going to make note of it moving forward and keep it in the back of my mind. But other than that, if you hear those things repeated, at least now you know the source of the information. But I will say, in the family statement, they're not denying the text messages. They're not confirming them either. They're just stating that they've never spoken directly to Mr. Bloom. That doesn't mean that they're confirming them either. They're not doing either. You know what I mean? So, that's what I said in my opinion. For the most part, it's a bunch of public information taken from different places that have been put together and then kind of like a little narrative of his own pushed with it. Storytelling, creative writing, thrown together with a bunch of fancy big words to create this story. But I think there's a good chance that the text messages may, very well may be legit. So I am going to just make a little mental note of the things that had come out through the text messages. Well, I'm interested in that. Make a little note of it, not rely on it, but make a little note of it, remember it, and just keep it in my mind moving forward. Yes, it did. ATS News, what are you going live about tonight? So tomorrow, originally I had it scheduled for today, but I wanted to hop on and discuss this. So I pushed it to tomorrow. But tomorrow is the live that I had scheduled for us to go over Gypsy Rose Blanchard and the Nick Godejohn security footage. So to go through, surveillance footage. So to go through all of the surveillance footage that captured Gypsy Rose and Nick after they committed the murders, all of the movements that they made, everywhere that captured them on a camera. That live is scheduled. So make sure that you click on set your notification bell and your reminder so you are notified the moment that we go live tomorrow night if you are interested in that. Okay, so ATS News is going live about Delphi tonight at 8:45 Eastern. So please join us over there if you are interested. I've been waiting to hear Amber's thoughts regarding Delphi. I still am so caught on Delphi with my thoughts. I haven't been able to figure out where I'm sitting on things. And so I really love to hear people's feedback. Oh yeah, ATS. I really love to hear people's feedback with it because I'm just so intrigued by it all. But like I said, with Delphi, with at least Richard Allen's defense team, we are seeing what you would anticipate to see with a defense team who is claiming that there is cover-ups going on and a conspiracy going on. And hey, I'm not trusting, court officials or officers or whatever it may be. You are seeing their actions align with what they are claiming. Unlike Kohberger's defense team, their actions are not aligning with what they're claiming, with their hush-hush motions and their let's get the cameras out of the courtroom. It just does not align. But I will see you guys on my channel tomorrow for Gypsy and Nick's security. Oh, I did it again. Surveillance footage, caught on camera moments. And then I will hopefully see you guys over on ATS News channel tonight, 8:45 Eastern. Nightbot's going to drop her link together. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. Nightbot's going to drop her link again. That's tonight, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, to go over the Delphi case. So thank you all so much for being here with me. Thank you for anybody who had gifted memberships or sent super chats. Your support means so much to me. Other than that, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you over at ATS's. And yeah, I will talk to y'all soon.